The first skills we're going to work with are just going to be getting the basics down of drawing a cube that exists fully above the horizon line, a cube that exists on the horizon line like it's crossing over the way a building would, and then a cube that exists below the horizon line. For all of those, the steps are pretty much the same. It's just you're going to work them in different ways because of where they are. I'm going to line my ruler up with this top edge of my paper, and I'm going to start with my cube that is above my horizon line. And I'm just going to start off by tracing along the edge of my ruler a vertical line. That's going to become the corner of my first cube that I'm working on. I'm going to connect both the top and the bottom with both vanishing points. So this top is going to connect here and it's going to connect here. The bottom is going to connect here and it's going to connect here. I'm not going to eyeball that because I want it to be correct. I'm going to use my ruler to connect those 2 points and trace along it. Now I'm not drawing super hard as I do this, because in the end, if I was really drawing, I'd end up erasing part of these vanishing lines unless I wanted my cube to like fully exist, like it's going all the way back that far. But I don't, so I'm drawing kind of lightly so that I'll be able to erase. A little trick that I like using is if I put my pencil on this vanishing point where I know my ruler needs to line up, I can make my ruler touch that, and then I'm not having to look back and forth between both places to know that I've got it lined up. I know it's lined up here because my pencil isn't allowing it to go any further. And I can trace this, and I can trace my top as well. Okay. That'll be the same for the cube below when you get to that. It's just going to be down here. All right, the next step is I need to establish where I want this cube to end in space. So how far do I want it to go back towards that vanishing point? I'm going to again connect the side of my ruler with the edge of my paper so that I know I'm getting a vertical line. It needs to be parallel with this line and it needs to be parallel with the edge of my paper. And if I just start eyeballing, it's very likely that I'm going to end up with a little bit of a diagonal. All right, so I've got my ruler lined up and I know I've got a vertical line, so I'm going to trace right along here. This is where my cube is ending in space, so in the end I would be able to erase these vanishing lines if I was doing a real drawing. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm not lining my ruler up down here. I'm again going to line it up with the edge of my paper, and I'll move it over just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to draw my third vertical line. This line, and this line are all parallel with each other. And I have the left face of my box, I have the right face of my box. And because it's above the horizon line, meaning it's above my eye level, I would be seeing the bottom of this box as well. So I'm going to connect the bottom of this vertical line all the way across to this vanishing point. I'm going to connect the bottom of this vertical line across to this vanishing point. And where those two lines intersect with each other, that's the place where the bottom of my box ends. All right, so I'm going to use that trick of putting my pencil on this line and here. So I'm connecting this side of my box to my vanishing point over here. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. All right, so now I have the left face of a box, I have the right face of a box, and I have the bottom face of my box. If I was really drawing, I could now go over this in color. I could go over it in Sharpie, and then I could erase away all of those vanishing lines. I'm going to go over this with Sharpie so you can see what it would look like. And then these lines that don't really exist anywhere except for just in my imagination, because I'm imagining this cube that's going back into space, I would be able to erase. For the purposes of this practice, I'm going to leave them because that way you can see a little more clearly what I'm doing. Okay, so this would be my cube above. All right, so for my cube below, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I just have to pay attention to what I'm connecting. So I'm going to again line my ruler up with my edge of my paper. I'll draw a little bit more shallow box this time. So I did a shorter vertical line using the edge of my ruler. The exact same as before, I'm going to connect the top and the bottom of this vertical line to both of my vanishing points on either side so that I get that the way that this is looking like it's going back into space. Do the same thing over here. The top and the bottom get connected to my vanishing points. Whoop, I kind of got off on that one, so I'm gonna erase. If you're even off a little bit, your perspective won't end up working correctly. So I'm gonna fix that one, making sure I'm lined up with both things that I need to be lined up with. So now I've got the left face and the right face, but they're not ending in space anymore. I need to establish where I want them to end. So I'm going to line up with the edge of my paper, so I know I'm getting a vertical line that will be parallel to this line and the edge of my paper. And I'm going to draw a vertical line. I'm going to do the same thing over here. It's when these lines start to get close together that it gets really easy to start trying to do a diagonal line. That's why it's so important that you use the edge of your paper so that you know you're getting a vertical line. All right, so I've got my two faces, I've got my three vertical lines. This vertical line is now going to connect over to this vanishing point. This vertical line is going to connect over to this vanishing point, just as before. And where those two lines intersect with each other is where the top of my box or cube exists in space. So I've got now my left side, my right side, and I've got the top face of a cube. And again, if I was really drawing, I could then erase away all these vanishing lines and just keep only my box. All right, now if you've got, I'm gonna switch over, well, I'll do this one in color once I finish it. For a cube that is existing on the horizon line, let's see, this one's cube below. And the thing I forgot to say is because, again, this horizon line is your eye line, you can see the top of this box because it's below your eye line. All right, so for a cube that is crossing over this horizon line, you might be wondering why I didn't make my horizon line darker or like go over it with Sharpie. And this is why. If I've got something that's crossing over it, I need to be able to erase it. So for the cubes that are crossing over, for example, like a building, it's existing on the ground, but it of course then is taller than you so that people can fit into it. You need to be able to erase the horizon line as it's going through that building. So I'm going to start the same way, where I've got this line that is vertical and it's crossing from the top of my horizon line past down below my horizon line. And just to not mix up vanishing lines, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so that we don't get confused with the vanishing lines that I've already used. Exactly the same way as before, I'm going to connect the bottom of this vertical line with my vanishing point over here. I'm going to connect the top of my cube with my vanishing point over here. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side, where I'm connecting my vanishing point with my vertical line, my vanishing point with my vertical line. And because this thing, like this is our eye line, we can't see the top of it because that's above us. We can't see the bottom of it because it's set onto the ground. So now all we have to do is lay in the left side and the right side of this thing and we'll be done. You don't have to worry about adding the top or the bottom. So I'm using my vertical lines to establish the top and the bottom. So in the end, I'll go over this one so you can see it a little more clearly. In the end, you've got your vertical line, that's the corner, that's the closest to you. You have your vertical line that ends the right side of your box in space. You've got the vertical line that ends the left side of your box in space. And then those things get connected with the vanishing lines on the top and the bottom, but because it's going both above and below our eye line, we cannot see the top, we cannot see the bottom. And then at this point, again, if I was really doing a drawing, I would come in and I could erase away the horizon line from inside of that box. I would continue my horizon line out here. I could even go ahead at this point, now that I'm done with everything I wanted to add to this drawing, I could make my horizon line bold because I know I'm not going to need to erase anymore for this particular drawing. And I'll go over this one as well so that I've got 3 different drawings that you can see clearly. I've got my 3 foundational skill cubes. These are the 3 that you really need to know. You need to be well versed in doing these 3 before you can continue on to doing anything else.